she do me. Oh, she do me. Yes, she does. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. I'm in love for the first time. Don't you know it's gonna last? It's a love that lasts forever. It's a love that has no past. Don't let me down.
Hey, it's Dave. Welcome to Classic Bassline. In this video, I'm taking a look at the bass line on Don't Let Me Down from the Beatles. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I love about this bass line and what you can learn from it. And later on in the video, I'll play a slowed down version of it for you. And I'll give you some playing tips. The tab and notation for this is available on my website. You can follow the link in the description below to get that. So, this song is from the recording sessions that the Beatles did in early 1969. These sessions are the subject of the new documentary called Get Back, which is highly recommended viewing. If you haven't seen it, stop watching this, go watch that. You'll learn a lot more from that than you will from me. The bassist on this track is Paul McCartney, which seems obvious enough, but there's actually a surprising amount of Beatles songs that have John or George playing bass on them, so it's worth mentioning. I based my transcription off of the version of this song that was released as a single, but there's a few other versions floating around out there. They all have slightly different bass lines, but that's not really consequential because what I'm doing with this song, and really what I do with all the videos on here, is I just try to teach you the important parts of a song, the parts that make the bass line what it is, what's important to know if you are going to play this on a gig or if you were going to play the song with your friends. You know, having the exact transcription is not really necessary. So let's talk about what I like about this and what you can learn from it. There are three main parts to this song. There's the chorus, there's the verse, and then there's the bridge. The chorus is easy enough. Starts out F sharp minor to E major, and that's this part. So one thing I really like about this is that the chords, the guitarists and the keyboards, they're just playing F sharp minor to E. But Paul does this on the last couple beats of the F sharp minor chord, which is a B. So he plays a B underneath the F sharp minor chord, which reharmonizes that F sharp minor, and it turns it into like actually a B sus kind of sound. And that's like a cool trick that bass players can do sometimes. You can occasionally pick a note that isn't in the chord, and it essentially turns the chord that everyone else is playing into a slightly different chord. That's not always a good idea, and you should use that technique very sparingly and with your ears wide open to make sure it works. There's definitely times when you could theoretically play a different note underneath a chord, but because of the voicing that the guitar players are using, it just ends up clashing. But here Paul uses this to great effect. The other thing about this chorus is that it's like it has a lot of these McCartneyisms in it. The first one of which is just playing up in this part of the neck. Paul made great use of just hanging out in this part of the neck, and he knew it really well. And actually, if you don't play so much up there, it can be a little bit of a no man's land. The other McCartneyism is these sort of repeated octaves that he does. Those like 16th notes on the high octave, that's all over in Paul McCartney's playing. And anytime you just want to add a little bit of that vibe, just throw that in. Okay, so what can we learn from the verse? One thing I like about the bass line on the verse is how it's basically the same changes as the chorus. It's just that F sharp minor to E. Paul really changes the bass line. He really creates two distinct sections of the song. And, you know, that's this part. So rhythmically, he adds just a lot more space, which really helps just give you some breathing room in that section. And the other thing he does is he changes the register. I mean, these notes are still here, but instead of going, he gets those low notes in, which again, they complement that extra space and just like create a whole mood shift between the two different parts. And that's important because I think it goes along with the lyrics and, you know, the feeling of the song as well. The chorus is Lennon with that just primal scream. You know, he's really begging, and so the band they're rocking out, they're matching that emotion. And then the verse, the lyrics on the verse are more reflective. The bass line just gives way for that to happen. And I just think that's really cool. Now the bridge. The bridge, this is a brilliant part, and you absolutely must know it if you're going to play this song. If you think you know this song and someone says, hey, let's play this one, you get to the bridge and you don't know this, man, you're going to be like, I got to go home and learn the bridge to this. That's why I'm teaching it to you now. Don't get embarrassed. I actually think George might have written this part. If you watch the documentary, Paul is just playing kind of a more generic bass line early on in the rehearsals of this song. And at one point you see George playing. You hear George playing that part when Paul's not doing it. So I think Paul probably decided, hey, that's a great part. I'm going to get in on that too. Anyways, so one cool thing about this part is that the rhythm of it, of course, is so unusual. And the technical term for what's going on here is a hemiola, which sounds like some kind of skin disease. But it just is a musical term that means a pattern of 3 superimposed on top of a pattern of 2. So if you listen, the rhythm of that is like a waltz. It's happening in groupings of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so on. Meanwhile, the drums and everyone else is still in that rockin' 4/4 time. So it creates a cool sort of tension, and that gets resolved at the end of every 2 bars, and then the pattern starts over. You can actually see Ringo trying to get his head straight around this section in the video. Check this out.
Don't let me down. I'm in love for the first time.
So the other thing that I really like about this part is the way that the pattern changes when it switches chords. So the first time, over the E chord, it's just descending down a major scale, and it keeps bouncing off of that high E octave. And then when it changes to the B7 chord, it's bouncing in descending thirds around both chord and scale tones. And instead of like trying to cop the similar pattern over the same chord. And I think that's one of the marks of so many great bass lines, is when someone had an option and they could have they found a good pattern over one chord and they could have, repeated it over the other chords. Most great bass lines never do that. They find a slightly different pattern, which creates a lot more interest and keeps your ears engaged in a certain way. So now I'll play a slowed down version of the line for you, and afterwards I'll give you a few playing tips. So the chorus, it's not too hard. He starts out pretty simple. He's always kind of improvising the whole time, but you'll notice that he gets more improvisational as the song goes on, as the chorus repeats. And you can add some of that, and all the improvisation is just happening right in there. I mean, it's all just over an E major pentatonic. The other thing that he makes a lot of use of is this grace note here, which is just a very quick hammer on from the B to the C sharp. Now the verse, pretty easy. The main thing is just keeping the count during that pickup melody. So make sure you're counting through and you're playing a whole bar of 5 before you come in. The other thing on the verse is these little slides off the 5th. Just throw that in, and that's a nice sound. Now the bridge, again, there's nothing too hard about this if you know it. But the thing is, you gotta know it. Because if you play this part, if you play this song with someone, the guitarist, the keyboard, they're gonna wanna jump in on this part. And if you only kind of know it, or if you're like struggling to remember what it is, you're gonna play something different and it's gonna sound terrible. So everybody's gotta know exactly what it is. And I'd learned this one before, and then, you know, just like forgotten it. And then someone was like, oh, you know the bridge on that? And I'm like, what's happening? It's like, it can be a little slippery. So it's worth spending some time with and nailing it. All the other parts of the song, you can really do a lot of improvising on, and it's gonna sound like the song. But if you don't know this, it's not gonna work. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was useful for you. If you want to support this channel, please subscribe, like, leave me a comment if this is helpful for you. And you can also share this video with someone who you think needs to see it. Thanks so much.